In this video, I want to discuss the Harbaugh Rule and a tale of two Jimmies. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Dr. Anwar Yusuf Dunbar, and this is Big Discussions 76 Sports. First of all, please like this video, please share it, and please subscribe to my channel. I'm still hanging out in the 940 range, and I'm on a push to 1,000. So if you're new to this channel, please hit that subscribe button and help push me to that holy number of 1,000. Well, guys, I just wanted to shoot a short video on the Harbaugh Rule, and this discussion comes from, once again, John U. Bacon's book, Overtime. I'm almost done with the book, and my schedule is so busy that usually the only time I have to sit down and read and allow my mind to, the only time my mind has to kind of sit down and read and digest information from books and the newspaper and those kinds of things is on Saturday or Sunday mornings. And so I'm just gradually working my way through this book. I'm almost done. I'm almost to the 2018 Revenge Tour Ohio State game. Of course, we all know how that turned out. But in this book, John just doesn't go linearly through that season. He tells other stories and facts about Jim Harbaugh's life and the Michigan football program and other folks associated with the program, like Bo and Dan Dierdorf and the recruiting staff and the Harbaugh family, John, Jack, all that. But this comes from chapter 36, and I thought that this was interesting because we've talked about this on this channel before during live streams. The fact that Jim looks noticeably different than when he first started. Obviously, it's been, 6 to 7 years. He's aged. I think he's in his late 50s now, and it's been a bumpy ride for him with no wins against Ohio State and a dismal record in the bowl games for the last 3 to 4 years. So it's been a rough ride for him, and he's been getting criticized from within the fan base and from guys like Mike Valenti and Paul Feinbaum and everybody. I've got numerous people in my circle that are like an uncle who insists, you guys need to fire Harbaugh, and Abdul Gaines. They should have fired Harbaugh a long time ago. So he's had a rough ride, but also it was noticeable within his first 2 years, the 2015 and then the 2016 season, which culminated in the J.T. Barrett first down and that bowl loss to Florida State. He was noticeably different after that. And John U. Bacon discusses in this book why. So once again, salute to John U. Bacon, and let's find out why Jim was noticeably, after the first 2 years, why he was noticeably less fiery and less in your face and less animated and less cantankerous on the sidelines. There's a reason why. So this comes from chapter 36, The Prodigal Son. In the first part of this chapter, I actually talks about the satellite camps that Jim conducted those first 2 years, which coaches in the SEC and the other conferences didn't like. But I'm going to skip ahead to the Harbaugh Rule. So this is actually, and this is a short passage. I know that two or three videos ago I read multiple passages from this book, and it went for about 30 minutes. I'm not doing that today. There just isn't time, and you guys probably don't have the patience. This starts on page 360. After rattling the establishment, Harbaugh turned around the Wolverines his first season, doubling the win total to 10-3 his first season, with a fiery sideline style reminiscent of Bo Schembechler. The next year, when the third-ranked Wolverines and number 2-ranked Ohio State played their second game of the century in 2016, it lived up to the hype. The previous one was the 2006 Chad Henne, Troy Smith, Lloyd Carr, Jim Tressel matchup down at the Horseshoe. Michigan, and ironically, it was 10 years later. Or should I say coincidentally, it was 10 years later. Michigan led from the start, but couldn't put the Buckeyes away due to an anemic fourth quarter. Wilton Speight broke his collarbone, and we couldn't move the ball on the ground. This was exactly what Dan Deerdorf was talking about. The O-line couldn't get a first down when it had to. In the second overtime, when the Buckeyes needed a first down to avoid losing, the refs ruled they had made it by a whisker. Photos of that spot have been broken down more minutely than the Zapruder film and are even less conclusive. On the next play, Ohio State won the game. I stayed up all night. I couldn't sleep that night. I laid in my bedroom in the back of my mother's house, seeing J.T. Barrett run the ball, slam into those defenders, and I was laying in bed thinking about that entire night. It was heartbreaking for us. Just a few minutes after Ohio State sealed the 30-27 victory and the Buckeye fans rushed the field, Harbaugh faced the press. Prompted by a reporter's question, he said he was bitterly disappointed in the officials who had also given Harbaugh a penalty for throwing his clipboard, I remember that, behind him like a frisbee. Harbaugh's quote echoed the famous line of his mentor, Bo Schembechler, after the Big Ten's athletic directors voted to send Ohio State to the Rose Bowl back in 1973. In this rivalry, quotes have the half-life of uranium. In the offseason, the NCAA passed a measure quickly dubbed the Harbaugh Rule. Instead of having to issue a warning, then 2 5-yard penalties before calling a 15-yard unsportsmanlike conduct penalty, the Harbaugh Rule allowed officials to skip all warnings and go straight to the 15-yard penalty whenever a coach steps on the field of play or otherwise demonstrates disagreement with an officiating decision. NCAA officials hit Harbaugh where it hurt him the most, his need to compete. Just a few games into the 2017 season, fans and reporters noted Harbaugh's new sideline demeanor, free of rants, gestures, and stomping on the field. When I asked him about this, sitting at his parents' table, he explained simply, they made a rule. His father added with a grin, Jim changed his conduct out of respect for the Harbaugh Rule. If he didn't respect it, who would? Harbaugh had other reasons to shift his style too. Unlike his 2016 squad, the 2017 Wolverines weren't loaded with senior leaders ready to play in the NFL. That 2016 team was loaded with Brady Hoke's players who had become seniors. That's why they were arguably as good as they were, even though that team had a fundamental flaw, which was not being able to close the game out on the ground. They were the youngest team. This is the 2017 team. They were the youngest team in the country, replacing 10 of 11 starters on defense and breaking in a new quarterback, then another, and then another. Wilton Speight got hurt, John O'Corn came in, Brandon Peters got hurt, and then John O'Corn came back. And then remember that defense, you lost Chris Wormley, Channing Stribling, Jordan Lewis, Mike McCray, Ryan Glasgow, and then you moved up Chase Winovich, Devin Bush, Tyree Kinnell, all those guys. They were the youngest team in the country, replacing 10 of 11 starters on defense and breaking in a new quarterback, then another and another. Harbaugh knew he needed more patience to bring along his younger charges. Harbaugh also largely retired from his famed Twitter wars, which had earned him 2 million followers, the most of any coach in America. It gets time consuming, and I just got tired of it, he told me. Besides, I never started those fights. I was always the counterpuncher, like Sugar Ray Robinson, the middleweight champion of the 1950s. Nobody's really saying anything bad about our program anymore, so there's no need. Harbaugh's new style didn't bring better results. The 8-5 finish left the Wolverines unranked for the first time since the Hoke era, and the upward trajectory of Harbaugh's tenure interrupted, but perhaps it would have been worse if Harbaugh had applied his emotional approach to this far less experienced team. Regardless, none of that spared him a crescendo of criticism from fans and reporters alike. The national media crowed that Harbaugh was a bust, and for the first time, a significant minority of Michigan fans wondered aloud if that might be true. I'm looking at you, Abdul Gaines. Could Harbaugh recapture the promise of his first 2 seasons coaching in Ann Arbor? Would he do so by returning to his hot-blooded coaching style or sticking with his cooler approach? The players got the answer before the public did when Harbaugh met with Higdon, Winovich, and other team leaders shortly after the Ohio State game to ask for their input and act on it. He also impressed the players with his calmer demeanor. When I see Coach sitting around the building these days, Bredesen told me, he looks relaxed, just a lot more comfortable this year. He's opened himself up, and it seems like he's enjoying himself more. If he is calmer these days, Harbaugh told me, it's because they have players who do the right things and staffers who make life easier. That makes me calmer. The fans saw that the new Harbaugh was back for another season during the Notre Dame game, which featured a few suspect calls that the old Harbaugh would have pounced on. But the new Harbaugh largely ignored, knowing a response could cost his team 15 yards. It's rare to see a man in his 50s, and especially such a public personality in a volcanic eruption, change so much. But what fans wanted to know was this: would Harbaugh's cooler style produce better results? So that's the Harbaugh Rule and a tale of 2 Jimmies. So it looks like they legislated a rule. Yeah, I do remember that the 2016 Ohio State game. I do remember Jim losing it a couple times and throwing his clipboard or his play sheet up in the air and him getting penalized. So you could arguably say that he helped to cost us that game. But in any case, we'll discuss that later perhaps. Or maybe we won't even discuss it at all, as it's bygones and history now. So let me know what you think in the comment section below about the Harbaugh Rule and a tale of 2 Jimmies. Surprisingly, once again, Jim is still in Ann Arbor with a younger coaching staff and another rebuild. So let's see what happens with that. Please like this video. Please share it. And please subscribe to my channel. I gotta add this in here. On that 2017 team, another defensive player that moved up to play a more prominent role was Abdul Gaines's favorite Michigan Wolverine of all time, Rashawn Gary. I couldn't help it. All right, hey y'all, go blue. And as always, remember that your attitude determines your altitude. Take care, and I'll talk to you the next time. Bye-bye.